House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 6, Smallfolk. No spoilers for the future of House of the Dragon, but if I do, I'll warn you first. The opening tapestry sequence has been updated. Now we see the Battle of Rook's Rest, as well as the deaths of Rhaenys and Meleys.
We are ready to march, as soon as Prince Aemond is able to join us. On Vega.
He dares to summon me!
Lord Jason Lannister brought his pet lions on the road just in case anyone forgets what family he belongs to. As children, Cersei and Jaime would dare each other to enter one of the lion cages in the bowels of Casterly Rock. Cersei was the bravest, and the lion licked her finger before Jaime pulled her away. I'd like to see one of these good boys unleashed on the field of battle. Humphrey Lefford is the Lord of the Golden Tooth, a castle right on the edge of the Westerlands-Riverlands border. Jason Lannister and his army will wait here until Aemond and Vhagar escort them to Harrenhal. It appears Jason is scared of dragons, but many years ago, he was eager to make babies with Rhaenyra and turn House Lannister into a family of dragon riders. At Small Council, Ironrod suggests that Alicent marry Dalton Greyjoy, the Red Kraken, to gain the Iron Fleet support. Kind of like how Tywin wanted to marry the widowed Queen Dowager Cersei to Loras Tyrell. But Aemond refuses to wait for fleets from the west, and he plans to send Tywin Lannister on a diplomatic mission to the Triarchy, the free cities of Lys, Myr, and Tyrosh, so they may attack the Velaryon blockade in the Blackwater from the east. Aemond also fires his mother from the Small Council, which is hilarious. Alicent should have been a lot nicer to Aegon, the son who actually asked for her advice.
What would you have me do, Mother?
And would have let her do plenty of ruling in his stead. Aemond is a sicko who enjoys this sort of thing, so he's not gonna be pliable like Aegon. Alicent apologizes to her little vegetable, realizing it was her own neglect that prompted Aegon to prove himself in battle.
My son DAERON, what's he like?
I would also like to know. I do love this scene between Alicent and her brother Gwaine. It's classic Game of Thrones, when a simple conversation can reveal basic information but also develop the inner arc of a character. Alicent learns that her youngest son, DAERON, who she doesn't even know because he's been raised in Oldtown, has grown up into a fine young man. 16 years old, clever, good with a sword and a lute, and most importantly, he's kind, a trait absent in the two sons Alicent raised personally. She probably did her best, considering the circumstances of being a teen mom in the capital, raising two princes for a king more than twice her age, while trying to instill political propaganda into her eldest regarding his evil half-sister and the plot to make him king. Or, as Gwaine would put it, the environment was not salubrious.
In fact, be a less than salubrious environment for the forming of young men.
But Alicent is starting to blame herself for her shitty sons, and I think we could all do with a bit of King DAERON right now. Rhaenyra says that Seasmoke misses his bond. She has to act like Laenor is dead, but I'm curious what she's actually thinking here. Does she believe Laenor is dead, and that's why Seasmoke is restless, missing a bond with a human? Or does Rhaenyra think Laenor is alive, and their years apart is making Seasmoke miss his bond with Laenor, implying that Rhaenyra thinks another human can bond with a dragon despite its first riders still living?
Your grandmother's grandmother, AERIANA, was born a Targaryen princess.
What in the fanfic is an AERIANA Targaryen? Apparently a Targaryen princess was Stefan Darklyn's great-great-grandmother. Assuming that Stefan is roughly around Daemon's age, a generation above Rhaenyra, and assuming a generational gap of roughly 25 years, this AERIANA Targaryen lived around the time of the Conquest. In show canon, AERIANA might be a younger sister of Aegon the Conqueror. His father was Aerion, and AERIANA sounds like a female version of that, so maybe he named his daughter after himself. Or maybe she's an aunt of the Conqueror, and Daemon Targaryen named one child Aerion and the other AERIANA. Although, if that's the case, Aerion would have married his sister AERIANA, not Valena Velaryon. So maybe AERIANA is even a generation above them. This is getting convoluted, and it's reminding me of when Game of Thrones invented a King Orys I.
Good king must be just. Orys I was just. He was murdered in his sleep after less than a year by his own brother.
And a King Maegor III.
Did you know that at one point Maegor III tried to outlaw it in the Seven Kingdoms? Wanted to arrest anyone caught charging interest and cut off both their hands.
In the books, Stefan Darklyn isn't a remnant of Targaryen blood. He's just a brave knight who tries to claim a dragon and fails miserably. This shot is metal as fuck though. Sheesh. By the way, quick trip to the David J. Peterson classroom. Here's the translation for the Dragon Keeper's song to lure sea smoke. It's the same one from last season, so pause and read if you want. Daemon hallucinates the confrontation he had with Viserys in the pilot, after Daemon's heir for a day remark about Prince Balon.
The gods give just as the gods take away.
He gets emotional, just like when he saw young Rhaenyra stitching up the dead Prince Jaehaerys. Like always, Daemon is awoken by the strong arms of Sir Simon.
Good morning, Your Grace. As I said, there's been a raven. As I said.
Is the pudding now served?
Please. May I be of assistance, Your Grace? Your Grace.
Daemon asks Alys Rivers for counsel. Say what you will about the wife-murdering, wife-abusing, child-neglecting groomer, the man's not a sexist.
The people who support her will not be led by her. They look to a man for strength.
He respects Alys in a weird way, probably because she knows a lot of magic stuff, and a lot of magic stuff is currently happening to Daemon. It's weird that he accuses Simon Strong of poisoning him, rather than the witch who served him weirwood apple juice, but I digress. Alys advises Daemon to stay put for a few more days, and the squabbling Riverlords will figure themselves out. And right on cue, a few days later, Grover Tully is finally dead, despite the renowned skills of Alys Rivers. So this implies that Alys killed Grover so that young Oscar Tully could become Lord Paramount, and Daemon can now influence Oscar to round up his vassals and form an army. Alys is helping Daemon because Daemon can help Rhaenyra take the throne, and Queen Rhaenyra is what Alys wants. She says Rhaenyra does not lust for power, no more than Viserys did, and that's what makes them worthy of the crown. So even this spooky witch in Harrenhal is playing the Game of Thrones.
That dotard is of no use to us.
Are we just dropping slurs now? What's a dotard? Can I say that on YouTube?
With the COVID, excuse me, with,
Glory be to
The old man.
Indeed.
I've been loving Daemon's Harrenhal plot this season. It's slow, but effective storytelling. The writers have tied Daemon's inner arc with the story arc of the whole Riverlands. The purpose of these lucid dreams is to bring out Daemon's emotions and force him to introspect on his own life. In his very first dream, he cries as he sees Prince Jaehaerys' corpse, a dead child he's responsible for. In his very last dream, at least I think it'll be his last, Daemon finally apologizes to Viserys, his final boss. Daemon's heir for a day comment threw off the trajectory of his life, and now he's finally processed it and forgiven himself. Once this mental cloud gets cleared up, so does the Riverlands with Lord Grover's death. Just as Alys Rivers plays the Game of Thrones in her way, the Smallfolk of King's Landing do the same. We saw Alinda Massey meet up with Diana last episode, and now Diana is talking with Sylvie, the brothel keeper who tried to tell Aemond about the suffering of others. Sylvie is loudly declaring that the Prince Regent is hosting lavish parties with lots of food and whores, while the Smallfolk go hungry. This is a lie, but an effective one. She calls Rhaenyra the rightful heir, and Ulf seems to agree, so Myssaria's propaganda mission is bearing fruit, and so are these boats. Rhaenyra gives food to the starving Smallfolk, while Sylvie and Ulf and others will spread rumors about the Greens having feasts while the people starve. Bartimos Celtigar is losing his breath, talking about Rhaenyra's stupid plan to let Stefan try to be a dragon rider, and reminds her that his plan to march on Rook's Rest would have been much smarter. So Barty earns himself a well-deserved slap across the cheek.
Henry, take.
Very good. Another one for the collection. I do find it hilarious that Stefan Darklyn, with his tiny fraction of dragon blood, was given this opportunity while Bartimos Celtigar is literally Velaryon. House Celtigar is one of 3 Valyrian families left in Westeros, but like the Velaryons, they never had dragons. But unlike the Velaryons, there has never been a single marriage between a Targaryen and a Celtigar. Sure, some of them have sat on a small council, but the Targaryens just don't give a shred of legitimacy to their dragon blood. Go claim a crab, Bart. Rhaenyra is babysitting Joffrey Velaryon at the Eyrie, and she comes across some burnt bones, and realizes a large dragon must be dwelling here. Lady Jane admits that a wild dragon has been living in the Vale since the start of the war. So around a month or 2, I guess. These are the 3 wild dragons that live on Dragonstone that have not been claimed by a Targaryen, ever. In a suspiciously recent blog post, George Martin talked about his dragons and where they live. He says they do range to hunt food, and they even build their own lairs when riderless, but they are not nomadic, and never wander too far from Dragonstone. But maybe it just flies back and forth. We wouldn't want to misadapt George's lore, would we?
Your grandmother's grandmother, AERIANA.
Speaking of potential dragon riders, we see Alan and Adam on Driftmark, and Alan is shaving his silver hair. Adam wants to take advantage of the fact that Corlys Velaryon is their father, but Alan seems to enjoy a quiet life away from the shadow of the Sea Snake's great castle. Get your hands off Helena, you unwashed pores. That's better. Leon Estermont, one of Aegon's Nepo hires, removes the forearm of this peasant, which only makes them angrier. His death is amongst the most satisfying in the entire show so far, in my view at least. Also, why is Sir Rickard Thorne, a supposedly wise and capable veteran of the Kingsguard, suggesting the queens leave the gigantic shelter in which they are safely inside? Why not just put guards by the doors, lock the doors, and wait for reinforcements from the Red Keep to dispel the crowd? And then Alicent and Helena can leave safely. Very weird logic in this scene, but correct me if I'm missing something. I do like how, during the riot, Hugh showcases the terrible things a father might do to protect his family. Kat has been reminding him how poor and foodless they are, plus having a sick daughter. It's a horrible situation, one that a good ruler would make sure never happens. But Hugh chooses his family over this innocent dude. By the way, Hugh is becoming my favorite character over Helena even, since Helena is just being used as a delivery truck for mysterious one-liners.
Not the dragons, the rats. Was it worth the price? This one stopped singing.
She does let us know that one of her crickets has stopped singing. If this is a prophecy, I have no idea what it means. Maybe she's talking about DAERON and his loot. She had crickets in episode 3 as well, so leave your bug theories in the comments. Larys Strong gets called a toad by Prince Aemond.
You toad.
So he realizes that Aegon is still his best shot at power.
Foot fetish, you try to...
He shares this emotional backstory about his deformed birth at Harrenhal, and even mentions a sorcerer being there, who Lyonel Strong believed caused his clubfoot with a dark spell.
This is the stuff, Lyonel.
Assuming this was Alys Rivers, how old is she? She looks about the same age as Larys, so how could she be doing magic the night he was born? Alys says there are entities in this world which are older than living memory. Humans are just pieces on a board. This reminds me of a Bloodraven quote in Book 5. Let's turn to scripture. You may look where you will and see what the trees have seen, be it yesterday or last year or 1,000 ages past. Men live their lives trapped in an eternal present, between the mists of memory and the sea of shadow that is all we know of days to come. A weirwood will live forever if left undisturbed. To them, seasons pass in a flutter of a moth's wing, and past, present, and future are one. Bloodraven is a greenseer, who looks through history with the magic of weirwoods. And Alys is speaking about things older than living memory while they stand right next to a weirwood, right across the water from the Isle of Faces, where there are thousands of weirwoods. I'm not ready to make an official theory here, but Alys is definitely older than she looks, and she definitely has something to do with weirwood magic, and might even be a greenseer herself. Rhaenyra gives a very self-aware analysis of her relationship to Daemon, and it didn't take a journey through Harrenhal's magic sleepy time for her to get there. She says she always wanted to be Daemon, to have the freedom a man like him can have. And Daemon always wanted to possess what Rhaenyra had without even asking for it. Viserys' approval, and being heir to the Iron Throne. Essentially, he wants to vicariously live through Rhaenyra, and he doesn't currently think that's possible with Rhaenyra acting all peaceful and cringe.
It was my father who was still a child. He had his pleasure with me. His seed had taken root.
Whoa, Miss Arya got crastered? That is way worse than the backstory I assumed she had. I thought she was just a slave.
What the fuck? Is this allowed? What the fuck? Is that allowed?
God damn, why is this show so horny lately? For the second time, that we know of, Rhaenyra is seen sexually harassing one of her subordinates. This is clearly a pattern of behavior, a gross abuse of power that simply cannot be condoned. Looks like we've got sexual abusers on both sides of this war. Or maybe we're just seeing the embrace of two sexually liberated women in a world full of patriarchy that's trying to keep them down. Rhaenyra's bisexual exploration is actually mentioned in Fire and Blood, except it was with her own second cousin, Laena Velaryon, because of incest. Remember what they took from us. Rhaenyra's terrible misuse of the employer-employee dynamic is interrupted by Laurent Marbrand, who has news of Seasmoke's claiming. Astoundingly, Rhaenyra believes the Greens hath done it, but there art no Green to do it. All of them are either dead or already have dragons. Does Rhaenyra think the Greens had the same idea she did at the exact same time about getting some random with Targaryen blood to tame a dragon? I do love the way in which Adam bonds with Seasmoke. Whereas Stefan Darklyn tried to claim a dragon, we're shown it's the dragon who claims its rider. Seasmoke must have gotten used to a Velaryon upon his back, and if he can't have Laenor, I guess his half-brother is the next best thing. Alright, let me know in the comments which strong boy is your favorite, and where you think the writers hid Baela this episode. Thanks for watching, please subscribe, and come back next week if you want. Goodbye.